In this video, we're going to talk about which crowdfunding platform filmmakers should use in 2021. What's up YouTube, this is Zibi from Cine Circle, where we teach you how to fund, market and distribute your indie films. If you want to learn how you can make your own profitable indie films, then hit that subscribe button. Alright, so let's dive straight into it. Which crowdfunding platforms should filmmakers use in 2021? Let's talk about the two main options, Indiegogo and Kickstarter. You probably heard about both of them, so let me just walk you through some of the major differences, not just in terms of what both the platforms offer, but how those will affect how many backers you will get throughout your crowdfunding campaign. There is one major difference between the two platforms. Kickstarter is an all-or-nothing crowdfunding platform, whereas Indiegogo, you have the choice between the all-or-nothing funding model or a flexible funding model. Now that essentially means that on Kickstarter, if you're crowdfunding 10k for your film and you get to £9,999, you do not keep any of the money. Whereas if you pick a flexible funding model on Indiegogo, if you're trying to raise 10k and you only get 5k, you still keep the money. So why is this important? And you might ask yourself, why in the world would anyone go for Kickstarter? Why don't I go for the flexible funding model and guarantee that whatever I raise I can keep? And well, some filmmakers go down that route, but I want to tell you why that might be a mistake for you. When you first launch your crowdfunding campaign, you will be at £0 funded. You will then reach out to your audience and ask them to support your campaign. Now, if you reach out to me and you've launched your campaign on Indiegogo with the flexible funding model, I am going to be very hesitant to give you my money. Say I give you £50 and you raise no more money for the rest of the crowdfunding campaign. You can't make the film with the money that I gave you, but you still get to keep it, so you'll probably spend it on beer or something, and I've lost my money. On the other hand, if you launch it on Kickstarter with the all-or-nothing funding model, I would be very confident that I can be the first person to support your campaign, because unless you reach your target, none of the money ever even leaves my bank account until you reach that target and you know you can make the film exactly how you said you would. This just shows you that if you launch your campaign with the all-or-nothing funding model, which Kickstarter is famous for, you're most likely going to get more backers at the start of your crowdfunding campaign. Now let's talk about the last week of your crowdfunding campaign. The last week is extremely important, and it's not uncommon that filmmakers raise 50% of their target in the last 5 days. Now, if you launch your campaign on Indiegogo with the flexible funding model and your target is 10k and you've raised 8k and you've got 4 days to go, most of the people on your team, including yourself and most of your audience, will be thinking, they got 8k. That's a pretty good, amount of money for a short film or, a very low budget indie film. Hey, they've got enough. They'll be good to go. And the campaign will slowly start to die off. Whereas on Kickstarter, with the all-or-nothing funding model, the urgency will really kick in. There is going to be this real level of pressure and urgency that will first of all motivate you and your team to really push the campaign, and second of all, you will be able to use that urgency as leverage when you're talking to your audience. Unless we get to 10k, we don't keep any of the money. So it's not uncommon that on Kickstarter, in the last couple of days, backers increase their pledges, backers start to help you promote your campaign, and in general, it's a lot easier to get people to support the campaign and for you to get to your target. Now let's talk about some of the other differences between Kickstarter and Indiegogo. First of all, Kickstarter has a really high success rate of about 25%, whereas Indiegogo, for filmmakers, it's a little closer to 3 to 5% really. So when you look at that, probably Kickstarter is the better way to go. Now keep in mind that Kickstarter has such a high success rate because of the all-or-nothing funding model. The type of people who go and put their projects on Kickstarter are ones who are quite confident they're going to get to the target. The next thing is super backers. If you've never heard about super backers, those are essentially extremely rich individuals who pretty much live on crowdfunding platforms. They love the new tech, they love the new creative projects, and they support literally thousands of campaigns. Now the thing about super backers is you can't ever contact them, and even if you could and you did, they would never reply to you. They simply go on the platforms, find the types of projects that they love, and they support them usually big amounts. For filmmakers, it's usually either £500 or £1,000. Now, Kickstarter has a lot more super backers than Indiegogo. Yet another point for Kickstarter. One of the other big differences between Indiegogo and Kickstarter is that Kickstarter is extremely strict with its terms and conditions. For example, you can't even put the word drink in one of your rewards because that makes Kickstarter think that you will be giving alcohol away as part of your reward, which is against its terms and conditions. On the other hand, with Indiegogo, pretty much anything goes. You can literally sell anything with your rewards, including coupons, drinks, or anything like that. With Kickstarter, if you're quite close to launching your campaign, you should also be aware that before you press launch, you have to send in your passport, get it approved, get your bank details approved, and have all of that ready. Whereas Indiegogo lets you launch your campaign even if you don't have any of that information yet, and lets you add it on while your campaign is live. So what's the conclusion over here? Which one should I go for, Indiegogo or Kickstarter? Well, that really depends on your campaign. I would say if you've got a great campaign, if you've got a great team and you're feeling confident that you'll get to your target, definitely go for Kickstarter. But if you're not feeling so confident about your target, you don't quite know how many people you'll be able to reach with your marketing campaign, perhaps consider Indiegogo just to make sure that you end up with at least some of the money to make the film. Now there are two other crowdfunding platforms that I want to talk about because those two have been specifically designed for filmmakers. The first one is in the US and it's called Seed Spark. Now one thing to keep in mind, in order to put your film on Seed Spark, you or someone that you know needs to have an American bank account in order to launch your campaign there. They're actually also quite selective with what campaigns they allow to launch on that platform. But it has some great features designed specifically for filmmakers. One of my favorite is some people, instead of donating money, can actually donate other things that you need for the film, such as £300 worth of film insurance or £1,000 worth of film equipment hire, which means you can actually reach your target not just by getting funds, but also by getting the actual things that you need for the film. Now, if you're based in the UK or you have a UK bank account, I would highly recommend the crowdfunding platform called Greenlit. Now, they have some really great features, but I want to talk about one main one. When I said at the start of this video, when you launch your crowdfunding campaign, you will always start at £0. Well, unless you launch your campaign on Greenlit. The one cool feature that they have is a soft launch feature, which essentially means that before you launch your campaign for your entire audience to see, you can actually reach out to selective backers and ask them to pre-back the campaign. If you get them to pre-back the campaign, for example, £1,000 or £2,000, on the day that you press launch, you will right away launch with £2,000 funded, which will then make everyone else a lot more likely to back your campaign. I hope you found this video useful and that it gave you some clarity on which crowdfunding platform you should use as an indie filmmaker. If you're looking for more tips on how to fund, market, and distribute your indie feature film, hit that subscribe button.